Hello, everybody. Welcome to the brand. My name is Vince Russo, and let me say this. I am very proud to say my name is Vince Russo, and this is Podcast One. Now, I'm proud to say that for a couple of reasons. First of all, let me give you a little background on myself. I'm not going to assume everybody out there knows me if you're listening to the show for the first time, but you should know me. And I'll tell you why, because I've been around the rings of wrestling for the last 25 years. That's a quarter of a century, if my math is correct. Now, to give you a little background on myself, I started in radio with a little show on Long Island, New York called Vicious Vincent's World of Wrestling. This was all the way back in 1991. Somewhere around 1993, I was able to get my door in at the World Wrestling Federation at the time. It wasn't the WWE, it was the WWF. Once my foot was in that door, I started writing the television for the WWF around 1995, 1996-ish. And if that time rings a bell, it's because that was right at the time of the Attitude Era. Yes, I was the head writer at the WWF during the Attitude Era. My writing partner was a man by the name of Ed Ferrara. And during that time, we saw the greatest audience in the history of professional wrestling. And I had the opportunity to write and produce some of the greatest athletes in the history of sports entertainment, professional wrestling, people like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, DX. The list goes on and on and on and on. I worked for the WWE in that capacity till about 1999. Then I made a detour to the WCW, worked there for a couple of years. Yes, I am the one that put the world heavyweight title on David Arquette, and I'm damn proud to talk about it. I don't have an issue with it. I would do the same thing today. Worked for WCW for a couple of years. Of course, over there, I worked with the Hogans and the Flairs and the Stings and even the Eddie Guerreros and the Chris Benoits. I've worked with everybody who's about anybody. And also during WCW, I became an on-screen performer. So this old mug might look a little familiar if you're watching us on the Realm Network, if you're watching us through russosbrand.com. After WCW was bought by the WWE, I then hitched my wagon to TNA, and my good friend Jeff Jarrett, I wrote and produced and did a little on air for TNA for the good part of a decade. I left TNA about 4 years ago. I went back to consult for a cup of coffee, but quite frankly, for the last 2 years, I've been doing podcasting 7 days a week, video podcasting on the Realm Network. You could see all our video shows by subscribing. You just go to russosbrand.com. But I'm not going to lie to you. For the last 2 years, my eye has been on Podcast One. This was the place to be. This was the greatest podcasting conglomeration on the entire planet. My friend JR was here. My friend Stone Cold Steve Austin was here. Chris Jericho was here. And this is where I wanted to be. And for 2 years, I've crafted my skill at podcasting. And here we are today, our very first show on Podcast One. And you got to know something about me. I am honest to a fault. My honesty gets me in trouble. I wear my heart on my sleeve and I say what I feel, and I have no filter. Listen, some people are waiting for their phone to ring to get the call from the WWE, to get the call from Vince McMahon for one last run. That's not me. That's not me. I have no plans on going back to the WWE, TNA whatsoever. I'm here at Podcast One, the greatest podcasting conglomerate. There's that word again. In the country. And we're here, and I'm proud to be here, and we're going to be here 5 days a week. We're going to be here Monday through Friday, and here's the gimmick. It's a different show every single day of the week. We cover something completely different. Usually on today's show, we do a show that's called Vixens Who Rule. And we dedicate the entire show to the beautiful women of sports entertainment, professional wrestling, sports, entertainment. It's dedicated to the women who don't get their just desserts. But today we're going to put that show on the shelf for a week because we all know yesterday was a big night. Yesterday was WrestleMania. Everybody wants to talk about WrestleMania, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what happened last night, what we can look forward to happening tonight on Raw, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about the WrestleCon convention that I worked on Saturday. Chubb hubbed with a lot of my old friends, a lot of great stories to tell you about that. Those are all the things that we're going to cover today. I also might have a surprise guest for you. We'll see how that works out. One is planned, but you can never really depend 100% on this guy because he's sort of like on the knucklehead side. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if he comes on. But right now, I got to bring on and introduce you to my partner in crime. He's the co-host of the show. They call him Lazy Lane. I like to just call him Jay Lane. Jeff Lane, how you doing today, bro?
Doing good, Vince. Excited to be here on podcast one. I don't know about that introduction, though. Leading with Lazy Lane. We may have to remove that.
Well, listen, I like Lazy Lane. I think you should proudly wear the colors of Lazy Lane. And if anybody wants to know how we got the name Lazy Lane, let me explain this to you. We got the name Lazy Lane because I got an email by somebody that did not like Jeff Lane. All of a sudden, I started getting a string of emails by the same person who did not like Jeff Lane. And he basically accused Jeff of being lazy and Jeff, not doing his homework and not doing his research. And I kind of like the label Lazy Lane. So I figured, hey, you know what? Let's give this guy his just due. Let's call Jeff Lazy Lane because I like everybody on the show to have a gimmick and a character. So, Jeff, I would be very proud of that moniker if I were you.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's caught on with our loyal listeners who we call the brand, so I guess I'm probably stuck with it for a while.
Yeah. Well, listen, Jeff, I'm going to tell you this. Remember I told you before we came on here, I have a guest, and he's a little bit of a knucklehead, so I didn't want to say who it was just in case he didn't come in. Well, I also, just so you know, Jeff, I told him to check in with us at a certain time. But, of course, he's early. So the very first show, he's going to try to throw the monkey wrench in the show and screw it up like he screws up everything else. But I'm not going to allow him to do that, Jeff. I'm going to make him wait till the time when I told him to call in so he doesn't screw up my format because we're working from a format now. So, Mr. Mystery Guest, please keep quiet and sit there patiently for the next 5 minutes. Okay, bro? Nod your head yes. All right, there he is. All right, Jeff, WrestleMania. Listen, we watched it last night. There's a lot to talk about. Jeff, when I say WrestleMania 32, even though we're not supposed to say the 32 anymore, what's the very first thing that comes to your mind? When I say WrestleMania last night, what's the first impression? What's the first reaction that comes to your mind?
The lack of setup going forward for me. I didn't get a lot of, I can't wait to see where they go with this. I can't wait to see what happens next. I didn't feel like any stories were developed. The main ones just kind of fizzled for me. So that's basically my number one reaction is I'm not excited for what's next.
So you didn't view this as a launching pad in which years past WrestleMania has pretty much been a launching pad to the future and the direction of where the WWE is going to go. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I feel like what they're doing now is they're closing the book at WrestleMania on the previous year, and then they'll use tonight's Raw to debut, the new stuff coming up instead of using WrestleMania as kind of a bridge between years, which I prefer.
All right, Jeff, there are two things that really struck me with last night's show, and I want to lay them out. And listen, if you start listening to this show on Podcast One, you have to understand I was a writer and a producer. I am a fan of the entertainment aspect of wrestling. That's where I come from. That's my background. And Jeff, we've been talking all along about lack of characters and lack of storyline in the WWE. Here's the two things that stood out with me with last night's WrestleMania. First of all, bro, a lot of these matches, I felt they had lost a lot of their luster because, bro, we'd seen them all before. Like, we were seeing Jericho and AJ for the last 4 weeks. We were seeing the League of Nations and the New Day for the last 4 weeks. We were seeing Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha for the last 4 weeks. So by the time we finally got to the big WrestleMania match, we'd seen the match before. And it was like, bro, what were they possibly going to do, Jeff, that we hadn't seen the last 4 or 5 weeks on TV? Bro, you can go back to the day of the Andre Hogan build when these guys never touched, and all of a sudden they're in that ring at the same time at WrestleMania 3, and the anticipation was through the roof. You had that same anticipation with Shane and Taker. Never been in the ring before, never really touched. But, bro, half of these matches we had already seen to death. So by the time we got to WrestleMania, it was just another match. And, Jeff, in my opinion, that was because of the lack of storytelling and depending on the match going into WrestleMania.
Yeah, and especially when they used matches as the majority of the reasons for their builds. The entire build of this AJ Jericho thing, besides the, AJ Styles chance and the Y2 Jackass chance, which, you've ripped, this was like their 4th or 5th match. That was the storyline. They've wrestled a bunch, so we're going to wrestle again. I couldn't tell you what the New Day League of Nations storyline was, honestly. Like you said, we've seen them a bunch. The girls, I do like that they introduced something new with the new title. We'll get into that later, but basically, interchanging the matches, Sasha and Becky, Sasha and Charlotte, Becky and Charlotte over the past month or two, and that was the storyline leading to this.
And, Jeff, there's one other thing I want to say, bro, because I got to bring our guest in because, bro, I know he's going to jump the gun anyway. He's sitting there chomping at the bit because this, bro, listen, I know I talk a lot and I can't keep my mouth shut, but this guy, he never stops, bro. I mean, you got to be able, you have to talk nonstop to have killed an entire wrestling company like this individual did. We'll get to that in a minute. Jeff, here's the second thing I want to say. Jeff, I said this all along. I did a podcast yesterday right before WrestleMania. I was saying it prior to WrestleMania. Bro, in my mind, there was absolutely no way the WWE was going to come out of this with Shane McMahon losing the match and not getting control of Raw and Roman Reigns being the babyface champion. I said there's no way. Like, there is too many opportunities to tell too many great stories. Okay, Jeff? So what happened last night? Shane McMahon loses the match and Roman Reigns comes out as the babyface champion. But I'll tell you what, Jeff, I'm not cutting any promos because I can't believe for 1 second that when Raw goes off the air tonight, that those two storylines are going to remain the same. I don't believe for 1 second when Raw is over, Shane McMahon is going to be out of the picture and Roman Reigns is going to be the babyface champion. I don't believe that. I'm going to wait to see what happens tonight before I really go off. I have to believe with the Shane story, they got to play up what was in that lockbox. There's got to be more to the story than them bringing Shane in for 5 weeks and him just losing and going away. I can't believe that. And number two, Roman Reigns. We heard the boo birds yesterday. Now, listen, I'm not saying they should, immediately make Roman Reigns a heel. I've said it all along. I understand the house and the people booing at the house, that's one thing. But what are the ratings saying for the 3.5 to 4 million people that are watching the show? Are they tuning out when Roman Reigns comes on? That's what really matters, bro. But either way, they still have to address the boo birds because they come across on TV. So you still have to address those. So I'm not going to say anything more about last night's WrestleMania as it talks about the overall picture. I'm going to wait to reserve that for tonight. But we're going to break it down a little bit more now, Jeff. I'm going to bring him on. Listen, I don't know why I love this guy. Like, I just do. It's like a guilty pleasure. Because the fact that I love him and the fact that I bring him on the show, I just bring so much more heat on myself. And I'm very undeserving of it. But here he is, the world famous and legendary Disco Inferno. Disco, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Vince. How are you?
All right. Disco, you look tired. Are you tired this morning?
You woke me up.
Disco, listen, this is our first show on Podcast One, so I would appreciate a little bit of energy on your part.
Yeah, I know I got energy. I got my 2 cups of coffee in me. So.
All right. Also, Glenn, I think you'd be very happy to know that Ed Ferrara and myself had a question and answer at WrestleCon this week.
Yeah, I heard you. Ed tweeted that you buried me.
Yeah, we had 600 people at our Q&A. And I just made it clear to all 600 people, I gave you the credit for killing professional wrestling. And I think you owe me something. I think you owe me something for that.
I figured you would. That's to throw me under the bus. Discrediting my good name has been like your parade for the past like 10, 12 years. Jesus.
Now, Glenn, I know you're a very busy man out there in Vegas. Did you get to watch the show last night?
Yeah, watch it from start to finish. It was the most unbelievably long wrestling show I think I've ever been subject. I couldn't believe that at like the 4.5 hour mark that there was still like an hour left. I was like, it was shocking that
when you add in the pre-show.
Yeah, and the thing that mattered was like it was the longest show ever, and a show that could have been, with what they put on that card, it could have been done in 3 hours. Now, let me ask you this, Glenn. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Jeff. What did your first thought when you walked away from this show as an expert, bro? You're one of the boys. You've been there. You've done that. You've been in many, many, many major pay-per-views. Walking away from this WrestleMania, what was your first thought? My first thought that the WrestleMania brand is bigger than the WWE brand. Like WrestleMania is indestructible. They took a terrible card with no real draw, no match that anybody would pay. First, let me just a little sidebar here too. The build up to the show, people keep forgetting the past couple of years. They're not building up to a $50 pay-per-view. You're building up to a $9.99 extra show as part of your your subscription to the network. So you're kind of getting what you're paying for with WrestleMania. It's like, and which is kind of weird. It's like they can't even, provide you with enough good, compelling TV to build up and make you pay $50. It's like all they can get you to do is pay $10. Mm-hmm. Which is all anybody really pays. So that's a little sidebar. But to get back to my point, that show had no build up, no nothing. They draw 90,000 people on a nothing show, which is I was just thinking to myself, you know what, WrestleMania will always sell out and always draw massive numbers because the same people go to it every single year, regardless of whether they like the show or not. Okay, so this should be a glaring. Basically, what this should be telling the company is that we can draw WrestleMania no matter how bad our show is. So what we need to do is put the brakes on, stop everything we're doing. This is what they should do, and completely change the direction that we're going to improve the show. Because if we can improve the show, we might be able to improve the numbers on the show. Because, like I said, the ratings stink, but they still drew 97,000 people. And the WWE brand is not strong right now because there's not a lot of guys that are full time that are really over anymore. But the WrestleMania brand is still over huge, and that's what I came from watching. That's like that show will always forever will be an incredible spectacle, and it'll be a draw. And like I said, the same people will go to the show every year, like they do every single year.
And Glenn, I've said that for the longest time. They've created the Super Bowl out of WrestleMania, and that's a phenomenal thing. I give the WWE all the credit in the world. Glenn, being at WrestleCon on Saturday, bro, I'm telling you, half of the people at WrestleCon were from another country. Bro,
Yeah.
so many people
Absolutely.
from the UK, Australia, Ireland. I met them from all over the country. And, people might not believe me in saying that, but Jeff, you were at WrestleCon for the first time. All the people that came by to see us, bro, how many were from a different country?
I would say at least, a quarter to a third. And I had mentioned to you when I was sitting in the airport waiting for you, there was a group, and they weren't all together. It was probably, 10 to 15 people all around me, and none of them spoke English. None of them. And you could tell they were all in town for WrestleMania. So, yeah, piggybacking off your Super Bowl comparison, I wouldn't be surprised how there's a lot of people that don't watch the NFL throughout the entire season, but they'll watch the Super Bowl. And how Glenn said WrestleMania is becoming bigger than the WWE, I wouldn't be surprised if there's people that do the same thing here. They don't watch Raw, they don't watch SmackDown, but once a year they'll sit down and watch WrestleMania.
100%. I mean, 100%, and that's like the audience they've created is like it's like your geek audience. It's kind of like I've always said this: WrestleMania and SummerSlam to a point are just like your big conventions. It's your wrestling convention twice a year. WrestleMania, more people will come from Europe and Australia and stuff and everything to see it. But SummerSlam, everybody in the Northeast congregates to it and stuff. But basically, it's just it's a convention. Is all it is.
I did Austin's podcast a couple of weeks ago, and bro, I think you would agree with this. Steve didn't necessarily agree with this, but I said on Steve's show, bro, the card doesn't matter. The card is secondary at WrestleMania. They'll draw their 90,000 people. It doesn't matter what the card is. Steve said he thought the card was still important in selling tickets, but Glenn, I don't know about that, bro.
Maybe how many tickets could they have sold? The thing's basically a sellout. They had 87,000 sold. Was it 3 weeks ago or something like that? So it's like, what more can you sell? So it didn't matter what the card. Like I said, bro. Like Jeff said, these people come from. I did WrestleCon last year. Half the crowd are foreign. They're people traveling from all over the world that come that have probably been doing this for 10 to 12 years that just come to watch WrestleMania. And that's all. So you can't look at what it does and use it as a gauge on the business is healthy, everything's fine. It's just it is what it is. It's a wrestling convention. Period. I mean, it's a bunch of 20-something guys. There's no. It's not like it used to be back 15 years ago where there's attractive girls that show up and stuff. It's basically, like I said, it's a comic book crowd that comes to watch wrestling.
Now, Glenn, you said you were at WrestleCon last year, and I was there this year, and you were not there. Could I assume that they did not invite you back?
Well, I didn't even know who invited me last year.
All right.
I mean, it's like the WrestleCon. Yeah, I mean.
All right, Glenn.
I'm not, bro. Let me tell you something. I went 1 year. It was enough. Okay, I made more money here in Vegas than I did at the WrestleMania. I saw Conan and everybody last year. I saw my friends. It's like they're doing great, but fine. It's like
we're gonna talk about WrestleCon later. And Conan buried you, by the way, to me. Hey, Glenn, let's talk about the undercard real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this undercard because I want to talk about a couple of the main matches. Let's go through it real quick. First of all, we opened up with a ladder match. Zack Ryder went over. Let me give my 2 cents. Then, Jeff, we'll go to you. Then we'll go to Glenn. I just want to say this real quickly. First of all, what these guys do in this match, they're out of their minds. I mean, I just sit there and I watch the bumps and I watch the spots. And listen, bro, I understand these guys love the business. There's 100,000 people there. The adrenaline's flowing. I understand. I get all that. But still, honestly, I don't know if I would put my body in harm's way where somebody in this match could really get hurt very badly. But the fact of the matter is, They pulled it off. Here's the one thing I will say, bro. This is what amazes me about wrestlers. Glenn was a wrestler. Bro, the fact that these guys, literally tore their body ups, put it all out there, and then they're going to go on Raw tonight and they're going to compete again. That to me is unbelievable, bro. I don't know how half of them are going to get out of bed this morning, but they will go on Raw and they will have a match tonight, which tells you everything about what a professional wrestler is. real quickly, I did not mind Zack Ryder going over because in this type of match, anybody can go over. So it makes sense. It did not hurt anything. I kind of like what they did, depending on what they do with Ryder. Because, bro, basically, it looks like they're going to go to an Owens and Sami Zayn match because that's what all the internet marks want. And you don't need a belt involved in that. That could be a personal issue. You don't need the belt involved in that. If they can get another guy over with the belt in Zack Ryder, I'm all for that, but there's a lot of people, Jeff, that believe Zack Ryder is going to drop the Intercontinental title tonight, and if they do that, then it's a total waste of everybody's time. See, in their minds, they're going to think, oh, Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental title. We got him over, so let's just take it off of him tonight, but he still won it. No, bro. If you don't go with the guy, it's not going to mean anything for the guy. I'd like to see them give the guy a chance. He's got a good physique, bro. He's a good talker. Let's give him a chance. If you turn around and he loses it tonight, you absolutely accomplished nothing. Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with most of that, especially how over he was a few years ago, and they really kind of fizzled him out after that. But we always complain about predictability. I applaud them for this. Totally unpredictable. He wasn't even supposed to be in the match. He replaced Neville, who got hurt. So the fact that I would assume, 99% of the fans thought he was the one guy that had no chance of winning this match, that they did that. I applaud the unpredictability. And I would like to see the opposite of what you're hearing the fans say. I would like to see them do a story tonight with how he wasn't supposed to be in the match, then he won it, and have him carry that throughout the night and have him get a credible win tonight to establish him as the champ.
Glenn?
Well, I would do something completely different with the guy. If you want to get the guy over, so first of all, I had no problem with it because I'm watching that match and let's call a spade a spade. I mean, none of those guys are over. You could have put anybody over that match, and as the perception that some of these guys are over is just not true because they're over to the NXT fan base.
Right.
Like you could take Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and put them in an angle, but that'll appease your NXT fans. And they're taking the storyline from NXT and continuing it on Raw. That's just another sidebar. I think it's entertaining how they've taken these guys and basically taken their feuds from the Indies and just brought it right here to the show, acting like the feud on the Indies was actually a big deal when they're doing their matches in front of 300 or 400 people in armories.
And how about Glenn, and not only that, but not telling the mass audience exactly what the feud is.
That's funny. It's like they're just it's funny how they've taken small show wrestling and just brought it onto the main stage and trying to pretend like it's a big deal. Right. It's like people go, who are these guys? It's like you're casual fans, but just to a point, bro. I would if you want to get Zack Ryder over, the guy's been beat. He's done more jobs than anybody in that company for the past 5 years, which I'm happy for him because when you beat a guy down that much, he probably just wanted to quit. They gave him a great moment. Bro, I would put this guy in a suit and glasses and have him come out here and act like this guy's the biggest star in the company. I mean, you got a good heel right now because he doesn't talk like a babyface. I hear his promos that they're very scripted, but kind of Miz-like, very condescending when he speaks. Bro, I would just you get a pretty good heel here if you want to go with this. And, that's what I would do.
And Glenn, you know what I like about Zack Ryder, bro, and I think you'll agree with this, okay? Bro, he looks like a freaking wrestler.
He does. He's great physique. He's a good-looking guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I love that idea. Okay, let's move along. Let's go to AJ and Jericho. This is what I meant, guys, where I felt like I had seen this 5 times before. So when they finally got in the ring, the luster was off. This wasn't even like a rubber match. I think this was like the 6th match. It wasn't like it was for 2 out of 3 or anything like that. This whole match was built on crowd chants. It couldn't have been a weaker storyline. Listen, man, you got AJ Styles and Chris Jericho. I worked with both guys. To develop a storyline based on crowd chants is freaking ridiculous. But I will say this, Jeff. I like the finish. I like AJ. It was his. And, bro, here's the problem, though. The announcers didn't tell the freaking story. The announcers could have told a much better story. Here's AJ, his first WrestleMania, getting caught up in the gimmick in the match, trying to get the fans involved. He took just a little too much time to let the crafty veteran Jericho take advantage of the situation and get the 1, 2, 3. The announcers did not tell that story just like I did. But because I understood the story, I did not mind the finish. Jeff, I got to tell you this. Coming off of Zack Ryder and Jericho over, I'm sitting here and now I'm starting to believe, holy crap, bro, they're going to go the total opposite way with every freaking finish tonight. That's what I was believing. They're going to go the other way. And if that's the case, this will become interesting. But in a couple more matches, we'll see that's not true. What did you think about this match, Jeff?
I mean, I enjoyed watching these two. They're always going to put on a good match, but, you know, with the absence of a good story, I wasn't emotionally invested. But one thing I noticed is this match really established the type of crowd that was in the building. The pop that the Styles Clash got when he has, I think he's used it maybe once since he's been in WWE. You knew right then and there that the majority of this house were smart fans. They watched TNA, they watched Ring of Honor, they knew who, they knew the move, the Styles Clash, and that just made me kind of anxious to see what was going to happen with Roman at the end of the night once that pop happened for the Styles Clash.
Hey, Glenn, I want you to jump in, but when you talk to me about this match, bro, based on what Jeff said, Glenn, give me your feeling. You're being one of the boys, bro, and being a freaking wrestler. Give me your feeling today, Glenn, of it seems like every guy is kicking out of every finisher, and if that's the case, can we just stop calling them finishers? Because they're not finishing anybody. Yesterday, AJ kicked out of Jericho's finish. Jericho kicked out of the Styles Clash. What do you think about that, Glenn?
For WrestleMania, I'm fine, but bro, they do it on the show a lot too. That's the problem. I mean, let me tell you something. There's the way the internet community reacts when people kick out of these finishers. They think it's a great match, bro. Let me tell you something. I teach that wrestling class on Wednesdays. I tell you, bro, that's not a skill. We're laying out a match of where you're kicking out of a finish. That's not a skill. That's just laying out the match like a math equation. The thing I like about Jericho, okay, and the reason I love the finish, number one, the guy's a lifer there. He's always going to be performing in WrestleMania. He's always going to be able to get, bring a guy up to his level. Like AJ is what he is, bro. He's from the Indies. TNA's the Indies. We'll call it that. But basically, you can't keep beating him in WrestleMania. He got jobbed out by what's his name last year, Fandango, which in retrospect could be one of the worst finishes for story for if you look at storyline going forward and what they did with the guys and stuff. That could be one of the worst finishes they've ever done. So basically, I like the fact they've rewarded him because next year he's going to be in WrestleMania, and you can't just have a guy putting people over every single WrestleMania match because there's no intrigue going into the match. So he beat AJ. I've wrestled at TNA with AJ, bro. You were there with AJ, bro. I was in a program like a month long with AJ and TNA where we were doing the Sports Entertainment Extreme thing. I beat AJ, okay, and both 2 months later, AJ was the hottest babyface in the company fighting for the title with Jeff Jarrett. AJ can lose. All they need to do is just put a rocket under the guy, give him 3 or 4 wins over decent. Just give him a win streak, and because of his talent alone, he'll develop into a contender. So the people that bitched about him losing stuff, bro. When AJ lost his first match, they were done with the type of push they need to do when the guy came into the company. Right. You could have had AJ undefeated at this point. And you could have him beat guys. He's skillful enough and looks good enough to beat guys in 2 minutes out there because he's got so many cool-looking moves. You could have had him just squashing people. You could have him squashing people for 3 months. He could have been built up to be a guy that might be able to. Jesus, this guy might be able to fight Brock. So I mean, but they didn't do that. So it's like, okay, that storyline is pushed aside. He can lose. You know, but they're not really, like I said, they're not really doing anything with there is no stories. Everybody wrestles matches, and like the storyline is they're mad about what the crowd is cheering in the matches. You know.
Speaking of which, Glenn, like that's why, like, listen, guys, I don't like when we get to the League of Nations and New Day. It's like I don't like. There's nothing to even talk about with the match. The only thing there's to talk about is what happened before the match or what happened after the match. Let's talk about that because the match. Bro, we'd seen it 100 times. I could have cared less who won this match. Let's talk about the beginning.
Well, not only that, Vince, they told us themselves this match wasn't important when they decided the tag team titles went on the line.
Yeah.
So why should we care?
Yeah. Well, bro, let's.
Wait, the tag team titles, they didn't lose the belts?
Nope.
That was just a regular 6-man or whatever it was. I didn't even notice that.
I didn't know that either.
That's crazy.
Well, the highlight, obviously, to me, there were two highlights. The beginning, here's the thing. The beginning, the entrance was great. Listen, I think the whole Bootio thing is freaking ridiculous, to be honest with you, unless you're, like, under 6. But the big box and them coming out of the box and their outfits were extraordinary. They looked like stars. The presentation was beautiful. But here's the funny thing, bro. They come out with this elaborate entrance, and the League of Nations come out as 4 jabrones in wrestling trunks. Like, bro, could they have not invested some money in, like, ring robes or something, bro? These guys came to the stage, all 4 of them are just in trunks. And listen, man,
real quick, Vince, real quick. Last year, Rusev came out in a tank.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, but Glenn, I don't think people understand this. But, Jeff, I worked many WrestleManias. Bro, WrestleManias, it was like the time everybody got new gear. They invested the money. What was everybody going to wear at WrestleMania? That was once a thing. These guys came out looking like 4 total jabrones.
But bro, they say, why? Everybody looked like a jabron except for whose entrance? Hunter's.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that. That's on my note. Okay, but now let's talk about something else, too, very important. Okay, let's talk about the finish. I don't even want to talk about the match. Let's talk about
I do want to talk about the match.
Go ahead,
real quick. Bro, let me tell you something. I'm tweeting during this match. Bro, their act is getting too silly.
Right.
Okay, and like, but they don't. But the announcers could tell the story here, bro. I'm watching the match, and like, if I'm in the announcer, saying, "Boy, these guys are really acting too silly out there, costing the match."
Right.
You could bring that in a story because they're goofing and clowning around out there.
Yeah.
In the middle of the match, like, bro, like people, like I tweeted that, like, oh, this comes from a guy that was dancing and stuff. I go, yeah, but when I would do too much of that in my work, Kevin Sullivan would pull me aside, Arn Anderson would pull me aside to say, hey, you're being a little bit too silly out there.
Right.
And so I would bring it back. It's like they're not getting any of that type of instruction because I don't know what. Do you see the same thing? They just look like they're goofy.
I've been talking about that for weeks, and it gets me heat. It gets me heat because everybody tells me how over they are, and I've been saying the same thing for weeks, bro.
Yeah, they're just. They're turning into a comedy act.
Bro,
and comedy acts don't go over a lot.
Glenn,
so if they're complaining about them losing.
Glenn, you know what me and Jeff were talking about. And bro, I talked to him just last week, and this is what I loved about him. Bro, remember when Shawn Michaels was doing all the hijinks with DX, where they had the face shield with Slaughter and the spit and all the ridiculous things they were doing, right? But then, bro, do you remember when it was go time with Shawn and Taker, and Shawn would get right in Taker's face, bro, and he knew, okay, now it's clowning around time. Now I'm going to make people believe I'm going to beat The Undertaker. And that's what Shawn did. But it's like you said, bro, when these guys are clowning, now they're in the ring, bro. You can't take their work seriously.
Yeah, I mean the whole trumpet thing is like, they need to turn the guys heel again. I mean, like it's just they're too annoying to be baby faces. Like what they're doing at ringside, during the matches is heel stuff. Yeah. But I don't know if they really know how to be heels. Because when you're heels, you got to be kind of vicious. Yeah. You got to show intent to injure out there and everything. Not just these days, like, it is what it is, bro. There's scripted acrobats. Yeah. Nobody's a fighter out there. So maybe the League of Nations guys, some of they're fighters, and they kick their ass. It's like so that was the story of that match. You had a bunch of clowns that got their ass kicked by a bunch of men.
Yeah.
A bunch of grown men beat a bunch of kids' asses.
Well, let's talk about fighters, because listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I was the biggest mark in the world when Austin, Mick, and Sean. That was my time. I worked very closely with these guys for many years. I'd love to see them on the main stage. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It was a little funny to me, like how, you got three huge stars, and like all of them were trying to not overshadow the other, which was kind of awkward. Like I could tell Sean like hanging back, and Mick was hanging back, and like that was kind of awkward. But I got to say this, guys, as much as I love the legends, and that's what these guys are, they'll never be another Austin, HBK, or Mick. But, bro, there's got to come a time when the legends stop beating the guys on the active roster. I mean, bro, how are you ever going to get anybody on the active roster over when you're bringing in guys that were at the prime of their career 15 years ago, and they're still beating and embarrassing guys that are supposed to be your, at least mid-carders, if not upper-carders, in 2016. I mean, because like that's what they do. Every time they bring these legends back, they're burying their current roster. And I don't know how you're ever going to get the current roster over.
Oh, I got no problem with that. And let me tell you why. Because regardless of all the Kool-Aid these guys are drinking and all the support they're getting on the internet and, all the geeks that are putting them over or think they're great and stuff and everything and all that, Vince is still telling them, bro, you guys are never going to be as over as these guys were. And if you want to get over more than these guys, you need to improve your character and work on getting yourself over more. Bro, let me tell you something. I'm buying Steve Austin kicking everybody's ass on that show with the exception of probably John Cena and Brock Lesnar.
Right.
I'm buying Shawn Michaels could probably win the world title tomorrow if he wanted to wrestle. I'm buying Mick Foley, even as out of shape he is, will stick the mandible claw in any wrestler on that roster's mouth and win the championship. I'm still buying them. Yeah. Okay, well, and the reason I'm buying them is because I'm not buying the guys in the current roster. It's like, they're like stock, bro. Look at these guys like stocks. Okay, Shawn Michaels and these guys, they're strong stocks. They still have strength in their character. They look good. They're not crippled old men. So they can come out on that show. Everybody still thinks a grown man can beat up a kid. Yeah. So that's what I have no, like, you're talking about getting guys over and stuff. Bro, let me tell you something. You can't just, just beating those guys up will kind of like, the fans don't want to see that.
No, I know that, bro. But I think there's more of a creative way to do it. Bro, nobody's going to beat Austin up. I mean, I'm not saying that. But I think there's a creative way to do it to get the current roster over. Glenn, what about the freaking shape Sean was in, bro?
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Bro,
bro, you know how old you think Sean is?
Sean's my age, and he's like 48, 47
bro,
or something.
51.
Is he really? Wow.
50. I mean, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Yeah. Jeff, any comments about this?
I think we have to mention Rusev taking the stunner. That was awesome. Like, I popped for that. I thought it was beautiful.
I tweeted that was one of the top 5 stunners of all time. So it was one of the best stunners I've ever seen.
Let's move on because Glenn's being very long-winded, Jeff, and taking a lot of our show. So let's move on to Lesnar and Ambrose.
Bro, it's your first show. I wanted to be good.
Yeah, it's my first show, and typical wrestler, you're trying to get yourself over, bro. That's what you're trying to do. Let's call a spade, bro. At my expense.
It might also be our second show now too.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jeff. Bro, let's talk about Lesnar and Ambrose. I want somebody to tell me one thing. How did this match advance the build?
It was because of colossal weight
of Dean Ambrose. How did this get? Wait, Glenn. Let me say this first, Glenn. Let me say this. Here's what's happening with the Ambrose character. And bro, let me make this perfectly clear. Okay. Here's my disclaimer. This has nothing to do with the talent of Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose is not writing the show. Dean Ambrose is not writing the finishes. Dean Ambrose is going out to the ring and performing to the best of his capability. Let me say that, okay? But let me tell you what's happening with Dean Ambrose. Now we have a crazy guy, lunatic fringe, and now that craziness is starting to borderline stupidity. Because when you're crazy enough to stand up to Triple H, when you're crazy enough to stand up to Brock Lesnar, but you keep getting beat again and again and again, at some point you're a moron. And at some point you're not a lunatic, you're an idiot. And they need to understand before they totally kill this guy, they have to put him over in a meaningful match. He has to beat somebody to get to the next level. I'll tell you exactly what they're going to do now. Now they're going to look at Ambrose lost to Hunter. Ambrose lost to Lesnar. Let's give Ambrose an opponent that's lesser than him now, and let's put Ambrose over. And Ambrose is running in place like the gerbil in the freaking wheel. They're never going to get this guy over unless he beats somebody that means something. Jeff?
Yeah, at the end of the match, I was kind of like, oh, that was it. I feel like if that's the way it was going to go, that Dean didn't get beat up enough. You know what I mean? I thought he needed to get absolutely destroyed. But, I was watching the package before, and they made it clear to replay Heyman saying something about there's no shield to protect Dean here. So part of me was like, I wonder if they're going to bring Rollins in here and have Rollins help Ambrose win. Obviously I don't know how he is with his injury and everything, but they showed him working out, so I thought that might be where they were going with that, and obviously they didn't.
Yeah.
Glenn? Well, I mean, you get the same reaction. When the match was over, I was like, that was just pointless. Okay, because basically Brock beat him up. The only offense Dean Ambrose got it was after he kicked him in the balls. and that was seriously, bro. That was it. That was the match. I mean, am I right? I'm watching. I'm saying he's giving all these suplexes and stuff, and I'm saying, just for a storyline here, if I was laying this out, bro, Ambrose should roll out of the ring and roll under the ring. Okay, just disappears. And Brock is like looking for him and stuff. And so Ambrose climbs on the other side. He's got a lead pipe and he cracks Brock in the back of the. Just like, dude, stuff. That would be more believable than just a guy going out there and getting his ass kicked, probably less than he should have. If Brock was like talking about the massive destruction he was going to do on the guy. But, bro, let's call a spade, bro. Ambrose is out there wrestling in jeans and a tank top, for crying out loud. I mean, he couldn't look more generic. He looked way cooler than he was in the Shield. I was like Jeff. I'm thinking like, boy, this would be a better finish if Rollins hits the ring and they beat Brock down, and they get the and if Roman wins the title, get the Shield back together, because those three guys, the Shield was a stronger brand than those three guys on their own. Roman's getting booed out of the building. Rollins was a heel. Ambrose is in no man's land right now because they're trying to portray him as a character that he isn't. Bro, the show would be so much easier to write if you got the Shield together again with Roman as the title holder and just told stories around that, bro. They could fight Brock. They could fight Undertaker and Kane. They could fight the Authority. They could fight the New Day. Bro, there's so many stories you can tell if you just put the Shield back together than having these guys sinking out there in their singles roles, which is basically what they're doing. I mean, Ambrose, like you said, he's out there in a tank top and jeans, bro. That's like, I mean, look at what he used to wear. Look at what he wears now. He looks like he's like basically the type of wrestler right now where every geek that's watching the show can say, well, hell, I could be a wrestler, right. And they're going to go try out, and they're going to go wear jeans and t-shirts and try to wrestle out there. It looks ridiculous.
And just a side note, I mean, not for anything, guys, and I know it wasn't a fire marshal problem because The Rock lit his name on fire and he was blowing off a fire launcher. So I know it wasn't a fire marshal problem. Bro, listen, Dean Ambrose is a lunatic. Could we not fire up the chainsaw? Could we not have him chainsaw one of the desks or something? I mean, my God, like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, he's a lunatic. Here's a chainsaw. He can't get it started.
Hey, let me tell you, what would have been even more entertaining and I tweeted this before the match. What if Brock Lesnar walked out of walked out for his match with a lead pipe in his hand, and you go and you cut it back to a promo, and Dean Ambrose is getting in the cab and leaving the building. To me, that would have been a bigger pop for that. That would have been a better storyline for that match than basically anything. And they could have come back on Raw on Monday and said, "Dean, you have to fight Brock Lesnar in a street fight tonight, or you're going to get fired." You know, so I mean, I don't know. I thought that would be
gentlemen,
fun.
this is exactly why people say the Disco Inferno killed the wrestling business. It was ideas like this and the Martians, which we'll get.
Pop for it. You pop for it, though. You pop for it.
I did pop for it, Glenn. I admit it. Jeff, what'd you think about the three-way with the girls? This was another case where, listen, all the credit in the world to the girls. I love the girls. They're great workers, yada, 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 yada. What did we see in this match we have not seen the last 4 or 5 weeks? There was nothing left for them to do. So I really felt it took away from the match. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, pretty much the same, but I loved Becky taking out Flair. I thought that was hilarious. You know what I mean? Anytime Flair gets beat up, it's funny to me. And having Becky do the dive on him and him going down, I thought was hilarious. I am surprised that they went the route you suggested by staying with Charlotte. I thought the cards were all there, that they were going to Sasha, especially with the Snoop entrance. The way the crowd, they had to know the crowd was going to be behind her. I was shocked that they went for Charlotte, but that was your recommendation anyway because you thought it would be a bigger win if Sasha beats Charlotte one-on-one.
They got a lot more building to do with Charlotte. They got a lot more building to do with Sasha. It wasn't the right thing to put the belt on Sasha in a three-way. I think this was the right finish. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, it was good, bro. You know me, I'm not a big fan of women's wrestling, but these three are good.
Yeah.
You know, it was good, like I said, it was a good match.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it was. You got to. What are three ways? They got to be serviceable. They got to make sense out there with the false finishes and the storylines they're telling. Whether they're two are ganging up on one or something. You know, I liked it. I was pleasantly surprised because I'm not a big fan of women's wrestling.
And I got to tell you something. Listen, guys, let's give credit where credit is due. These are three very young girls that have not been on the main stage for a long time. And let me finish, Glenn. To go out there and perform in front of that type of a freaking crowd, these girls delivered. I mean, no doubt about that.
Let me tell you the difference in these three girls, though, and the reason Charlotte is the girl you need to go with, bro. And so many young wrestlers, and especially the women, do this a lot. They don't sink in what's the word I want to use here? They don't let the ambiance sink in. Okay, let me explain.
Yeah.
Charlotte, when they announce her, she poses, she puts her hands out very, and she soaks in the moment for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds. The other girls, they like do their facial for like 1-2 seconds, and then they go back to doing something else. It's like they're not confident in doing the things it takes to be a star. Yeah. When stars walk out there, their ring entrance takes a while because they're soaking in the people. They're feeling the crowd. They're cocky.
Yeah.
They're arrogant. And stuff. And they're confident in themselves. These girls like Sasha, some of these girls, they're not confident in doing those things.
Yeah.
And Charlotte is, which to me, she just comes across as a bigger star than the other ones,
And Glenn, perfect case in point, I swear to God. Bro, I think The Undertaker is up to 20 minutes in walking to the ring. Bro, perfect case in point. All right, let's move on because, bro, Jeff, I wrote a format and we're supposed to be on a time because we're the big shooters now on Podcast One, and he keeps freaking talking and talking. Now we can't talk about WrestleCon. I got to do that on Chicken Necks on Wednesday because he's here to get himself over. That's the Glenn Gilbertti story.
I've talked enough to where you can't talk about Bury Me.
All right, let's go on. Let's talk about the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. A couple things I want to point out. I'll be real quick. First of all, I still believe, I'll be honest with you, when Shaq came out at the beginning, I still believe that 70-year-old Vince McMahon still believes that Shaq is the active center for the Orlando Magic. I don't think Vince realizes Shaq retired 8 years ago, whatever it is. That's number one. Number two, bro, Jeff, we talk about this all the time. Well, a couple things here. Glenn, you should throw a fit on this one, okay? First of all, Jeff, I got no problem with this Baron Corbin winning. First of all, nobody knows who he is but the NXT crowd. We've said that a million times before. Jeff, if the guy's going to be in the Battle Royal, why not play the vignettes to put him over like he's a big deal, blah, blah, blah. No vignettes, no nothing. This guy shows up, wins the Battle Royal because we assume, 100,000 people, God knows how many million at home, know who this guy is from NXT, and they don't. They keep making that same mistake over and over. Glenn, here's where you're going to throw a fit. Jeff, imagine this. I'm assuming Baron Corbin, and I've seen him a couple times on NXT, is a heel. Is a heel, right, bro? He wins the Andre Trophy, Jeff. He's posing next to the trophy, and here's this big bad heel wiping tears from his freaking eyes. Could you imagine King Kong Bundy crying after winning that award, or Big John Studd crying, or Strowman crying? Bro, these guys are so ass backwards in the way they represent wrestling and a heel and a babyface. This guy's supposed to be a heel, and he's crying because he just won a match. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I thought the same thing earlier in the night because it looked like for a second to me that Sasha Banks was about to cry when she was in her entrance, and I'm just thinking you got to control yourself. You got to stay in character, which she ended up doing. And I may be completely wrong on that, but that's the impression I got. But with this, I was watching this with my buddy, and after the match, he looks at me and he says, I have no effing idea who this guy is.
Right.
So I had to explain it to him.
Right.
So how many people was that the case for yesterday? That's the question.
Well, plus too, bro. It's what they're doing. Like this is you've talked about this a million times. We're not going to get into it because it's been repeated ad nauseum. Is that the way you're supposed to introduce a character, 4 weeks of vignettes, stuff like that. This guy's a big star before he comes in. Who is this guy? He's got a character. He's got But bro, they think wins on TV actually means something. They don't. Okay, which is the current ratings provided as evidence. I mean, nobody gives a rat's ass if these guys are. Nobody cares when somebody wins something that doesn't really mean much because they're just losing the next day. And stuff like there's no it was what it was, bro. So it's a freaking battle royal. They think they're putting this guy over. Let's see.
Glenn, you know what it is to these guys. It looks the writers I'm talking about. It looks good on paper that he's going over. It looks good on paper.
It reads good.
Crap.
It means nothing. And then plus two, about what Jeff was saying about the crying, you're absolutely right, bro. It's like I said, the current group of professional wrestlers today, it's like they can't believe that they're on TV. They look like it's like wow, I can't believe they're such marks. Because basically they were smart marks before they became wrestlers because of the internet and stuff. Everything like it's not like guys like me that didn't know what the Wrestling Observer and the Torch was before I started in the business. Something. But whenever I walked out in front of 40,000 people, I felt like I belonged there.
Right.
I was very confident and stuff and everything. And like Jeff said, like the girl looked like she was about to. She did. She looked like she was about to cry because she was like, that's you can't let you might think that's happy and stuff, but you can't let the people see that. Tom Brady doesn't cry before the first snap of the Super Bowl. Right. He's not out there like wiping tears from his eyes because he's a grown man. So it's like these, like I said, this is the crying stuff and everything just feeds into my whole thing I've been saying. It's like the wrestlers today, they're kids. These are kids that are performing scripted acrobatics on TV. These are not grown men fighting, which is what pro wrestling we're supposed to be telling to the people and getting people to watch on Monday nights, talking about beating each other up, kicking each other's ass, and fighting each other over personal issues. It's just these are performers.
Right.
And they're out there, and they can't believe they're on TV and they're ready to cry.
Before we get to the last two matches, I got to talk real quickly about our sponsor, kayfabecommentaries.com. They put the best shoot DVDs on the market out there. They did the U shoot with Glenn Gilbertti. That was absolutely phenomenal. Glenn, they just did a new series, and I want you to talk a little bit about this, bro, because I know you're a historian. It's with Cornette. It's his Back to the Territory series, and he talks to Greg Gagne, who was the son of the great legendary promoter Vern Gagne, and they talk all about Back to the Territories, the days of the AWA. Glenn, tell the people literally some of the greats that came through the AWA.
Oh, well, Shawn Michaels. The Midnight Rockers came from he might be the greatest of all time, arguably. Shawn Michaels came through the AWA. Hulk Hogan came through the AWA.
Eric Bischoff came through the AWA.
Came through the AWA. Like
Scott Hall.
Scott Hall came through the AWA.
Vader.
Vader came through the AWA. God, there's tons. There's so many of them. I remember
Medusa.
Medusa came through the AWA. Boy, yeah.
So check this out, kayfabecommentaries.com, especially if you're a historian, even if you're not, but you want to learn about the rich roots of professional wrestling.
And let me tell you something, regardless of what you think he thinks about you, Cornette is an incredible historian on professional wrestling. He might be the foremost historian in wrestling today.
Yes.
So he's actually a very entertaining listen for especially for something like this when you're talking about history. He's a great storyteller.
And that's what I'm talking about, man. Back to the this is a history lesson, man. If you really want to know why guys like us are so passionate about wrestling, it's because we remember the AWA days. And if you want to really get an education, this is the DVD for you. Back to the Territories. You can go to kayfabecommentaries.com. All right, Glenn, let's talk about the last two matches. Let's start with Shane McMahon and The Undertaker. I'm going to say...
when was The Rock? Was The Rock thing before this?
Yeah, The Rock thing was before this. Oh, my God.
I just want to say real quick about The Rock. Bro, that was the best part of the show, was The Rock ripping Bray Wyatt on the mic. And it just goes to show you that, like, when a guy is allowed to eviscerate somebody else on the mic, how more entertaining it is than guys with the current verbiage that they're giving guys these days, where nobody is burying anybody on the mic. They're kind of like giving them their respect all the time and like not saying bad things about them. I would bro, I would love to see guys like, who are some of the current a guy like Kevin Owens in a verbal exchange with The Rock. Bro, come on. Now what would The Rock say about Kevin Owens? Okay, I don't even want to go there, but I'm gonna say, like, if The Rock was in a verbal exchange with a guy like Sami Zayn, if a guy, bro, but we should let the characters on the show do what The Rock was able to do. Yeah. It's like, why is The Rock the only guy able to do that? It's just verbiage.
I just think I think it's sad, Glenn, because what it comes down to, here's what it comes down to. Vince doesn't have the confidence in the performers. And if you don't have the confidence in the performers to give them a mic and say, go, I don't know what they're under contract for. Yeah. If you don't have the confidence in your own players, why are they there?
Yeah. Jeff, let me go one step further.
God, does he keep hogging this freaking mic time, Jeff?
It's
unbelievable to me. This is Glenn the Glenn Gilbertti Show on Podcast 1. Go ahead, bro.
Well, I'm just saying, like you said, we're talking about these kids these days. Bro, show some balls. You've got a live mic on a live show.
I agree.
Throw the script in the trash.
Yes.
And if you have confidence that what you're going to say is better than what they're giving you, and you know it's going to pop and get over, say it. Because that's the only way you're going to get over these days, is not by the stuff that they're giving them, because the stuff that they're giving them is burying them. Yep, and if you're on a live mic, say, screw it. What are they going to do? Punish him? Zack Ryder's just one match.
In order to get to the next level, and this is in life, Glenn. This isn't just wrestling, and you know this, bro. In order to go from the paycheck for 5 zeros to the paycheck with 6 zeros, a lot of times, bro, you got to take your balls in your hand. That's what a lot of it comes down to. And these guys would be shocked to see what it would do for their careers if they took chances. With risk comes reward. But if you're going to fall in line like everybody else, you're going to be Melba Toast, man. You're going to be vanilla. You're not going to get over. You're going to be on an even playing field with everybody else. Jeff, what do you think about The Rock then?
Yeah, no, I was curious of what you both thought about Bray's part, because I felt like once Bray came out, it became heavily scripted. You know what I mean? I felt like he didn't have a lot of reign or free reign to do what he wanted, especially with the Eric Rowan stuff and the Strowman stuff. But, everybody knows that's been following us, Vince, how big of a fan you are of Bray Wyatt. And when he came out, I'm thinking, yes, he deserves this spot. He deserves to be going with The Rock. Did you guys get the impression that while Rock said whatever he wants, Bray had to say a certain thing? And then I was just curious what you guys thought about Cena coming out at the end of all this as well.
Glenn?
I thought I wanted Bray's verbiage was fine. I didn't think it was that bad. Okay, but what we saw it turned into where basically the whole group just got jobbed out. When they had the match in retrospect. But the verbal exchange wasn't that bad to me because he was basically The Rock buried him. You could see Bray kind of sinking a little bit, like his body language, like he was treating him like a kid. Yeah. But then Bray came back with some pretty strong verbiage. Said a couple things. I'm not here to kick I'm here to kick the door down. And he said it with strength. But then they went into where all three of them got their asses kicked. The thing that was surprised with me, bro, if they knew Cena, I can't believe that Cena came out and performed like that. If he could have done that, or if they knew when he could do that, why didn't they put him in a program? You could have drawn him. You could have put him with somebody. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to for WrestleMania. You don't have to go out there and wrestle. You don't have to wrestle for 25 minutes. Okay, if you're hurt, you can go and have a 3 to 4 minute match. Okay, because it will look so different than the other matches. You can put it, but they put him on the show anyway. Yeah. If you're going to wrestle, the thing to me is oh my God, why would he need a program or something? They could have had a 2 to 3 week build up with anybody. Yeah. And it was just that. It was just a big surprise. It was like, hey, here's your paycheck. It's like a gift.
All right, let's talk about Shane and Taker. There's a couple of things I'm going to talk about, and I'll let you guys talk about the match a little bit more. I want to talk about some specific things, bro. I got the biggest kick out of it when Shane's kids came out. I loved seeing that. I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was phenomenal. Them mimicking their father on the entrance. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. Bro, listen, you had a 46-year-old guy in there and you had a 50-something-year-old guy in there. The match was going to be very limited. We knew this was going to be a limited match. We knew it was going to be a fight. That's why it was Hell in the Cell. We knew there was going to be the one crazy Shane McMahon bump. Okay, bro, I would have loved, I thought they were going to use Cena in this match because Cena had such a rich history with the Authority. I thought they were going to use Cena to screw Taker, give Shane the power. Now Cena and Taker had something that they could have built on. That's what I was hoping for. But regardless, bro, they left it a one-on-one, and I understand that. Bro, here was the biggest fart in church for me, and shame on them, okay? Jeff, we see the beautiful kids at the beginning of the match. They go down to the ring with them. We see Shane put the kids with the beautiful wife, Marissa. We see him give Marissa the kiss, the whole 9 yards. Okay, now, bro. Now we see Shane climb up to the top of the cage. Now, bro, if Shane takes this bump, he could kill himself. He could become paralyzed. He could split his head open. He could become a paraplegic. There's a million things that can go wrong, okay? Now, Jeff, understand we've set the stage by showing the 3 little kids, by showing the wife, and they're all sitting there watching this. Not one time was that mentioned by one of the announcers. There is no way in hell JR would have missed that entire story. What's going through the mind of his kids? What's going through the mind of his wife? What is going through his mind? He's willing to risk everything. His family's here. What if he can't provide for them? This, that, and the other thing. Bro, the avenue the announcers took were, oh, somebody get him down here. Shane, somebody go up there. And bro, that was, they made it fake. They made it freaking fake. They made it a work. Bro, if I was Vince McMahon, I would sit every freaking one of those announcers tonight. They practically kill that by making it so fake and so phony. And let me tell you something, JBL and Michael Cole. If you don't know by now how to sell that spot and how to sell the emotion and what's going on. Bro, you need to be calling the action in an independent league. You need to go study freaking JR and Lawler tapes for the next 5 years, then think about coming back. Because in my opinion, bro, that almost killed the entire spot by them not knowing how to call it. It was freaking sickening to me. Jeff?
Yeah, but my big issue with this match was the story was not there. This was the only story that people cared about, okay? But it ended up just being a Hell in a Cell match between Shane McMahon and The Undertaker. You got a glimpse of Linda with his family. Why is Linda out here supporting her son instead of Vince? Where was Vince McMahon during this match? How is he not out there or a part of this match? How is there nothing going on backstage before the match? Why is nobody talking to Shane? Big pressure on this match. Big deal. It was like this whole match was just for Shane to do the unbelievable spot off the cell. The story was not there for me during the actual WrestleMania show.
Glenn.
There's just a spectacle, bro. Like you said about the announcers, bro. There were so many times that the announcers just like, you're supposed to like the announcer's supposed to like add to the emotion, like add the excitement. It's like there were so many times where they would like, they'd suffocate the emotion.
Right.
So like things they say like suffocate the excitement. Bro, the best line before this was quick. Before this, after John Cena went in there, bro, the guy looked like $1 million, right?
Right.
He looked unbelievable. He's up from finish. They're walking the back, and JBL says, "Well, I know for a fact that he's in no condition to be out here right now." Like, what are you talking about? He looks fantastic. It's like, so it's like, bro, you're right. I mean, like, it was just that spot. Just bro, JR made that spot. The original one with Mick Foley would not have been what it was if you don't have the emotion of JR calling it.
You're right.
And so you can't repeat it. You can't repeat that moment. It's just it's just a stunt. This is what it is. It's just a guy falling on seconds. You could watch a movie, a guy doing a stunt like that. So it was what it was. Just a spectacle. Yeah.
And I gotta say, bro, it looked like he hit it perfectly, Glenn. You would know more about that than I.
No more about what? Jumping off the top of the cage on a table?
Just by seeing the fall. I mean, it looked like he landed perfectly.
Shane's a good athlete, but bro, every time Shane's had a stage to perform, he's killed it. The guys are really one of the more underrated. Like, I mean, for as much as he's wrestled in his life, which is hardly none, every time he's gone out there, it's like a 5-star match. I mean, so the guy's really unbelievable.
Let's talk about the main event, and let's talk about the preamble to the main event.
I loved it. The preamble or the video. The entrance. The
entrance. Go ahead. You go first, Glenn.
I thought it was super creative.
Right.
With the faces, with the things covered on the mouth and stuff and things. I thought that was I loved it. I'm like, wow, that's artsy and creative. Yeah. I like stuff like that.
But Glenn, why or how does Triple H wind up getting the best entrance at every wrestler? How does that work, bro?
Because he's part of the ownership of the country. Here comes the company. Here comes the owner.
Okay, all right. But what about this, bro? What about here's what surprised me. Stephanie's cutting the promo. I mean, bro, basically, like she's told us all, like, we're all losers, we're all idiots, we're all imbeciles. Okay, Stephanie, we get that. We're all idiots. But bro, what about Stephanie delivered the line that come tomorrow there'll be no hope? Like what? Why am I watching Raw tomorrow? Then here, the owner of the company is telling me there's absolutely no hope. Come tomorrow. Why am I tuning into Raw if she's telling me there's no hope?
I thought that line was it's mistaken. The line was a mistake, obviously.
I hope so, bro. I hope so. Jeff, what do you think about Hunter again getting the greatest entrance in the history of WrestleMania?
I thought the idea was good. I thought Stephanie looked amazing. I thought she looked really hot in that gear, honestly. But I thought her verbiage was weird. I didn't think it fit. That was the thing to me. I thought the idea was really good, but the execution failed.
All right, let's talk about the match real quickly, I'll say, and then I'll let you guys go. I thought this would have been a great Rollins spot. I really, 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 really did. Rollins was the champion before he got hurt. under the guidance and tutelage of Triple H. Now all of a sudden with Triple H, it's me, and Rollins is a forgotten guy. I thought this would have been a great spot, but they left it on the two guys. That's the listen. I've worked at WWE long enough to know that's the mentality. When it's a big pay-per-view match, a lot of times they like to leave it on the two guys. So I have no problem with that. I can't believe for a second that Roman Reigns is going to be the baby face champion that Vince has been saying he's going to be. Here's the thing, Glenn, and you'll understand this completely. I am not saying that they need to turn Roman Reigns heel because of the reaction from the crowd. Because I was taught, Glenn was taught, you're not playing to the crowd. You got a lot of the wrestling smarts in the crowd, and those are the people booing Roman. Me, I'm looking at the overall ratings, the 3.5 to 4 million people that are watching Raw on Monday nights. What's happening to those ratings when Roman Reigns comes on, when Roman Reigns is wrestling? That's all that matters to me. If those ratings are still strong, you're okay in what you're doing. However, if the people at home are hearing those boos week after week after week, at some point they need to be addressed, because in wrestling, perception is everything. So at some point you just can't keep putting Roman out there, have him booed out of the building, and not address what is going on or pay no attention to it. Go ahead, Glenn.
So simple. It's so simple, bro. This story is not. Everybody's, all the internet people, the writers and stuff, they talk about, Roman, this is Vince, trying to push his babyface. Bro, no. The story has been, since Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns versus the fans. Okay, the fans are booing him out of the building. He's not doing anything wrong. Right. He's doing what he's told. He's a baby face here. The fans are the heels. Okay, because they're burying this guy for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that they don't want, and I'm going to go do a sidebar in a minute, but I'll lead into this. Is basically that bro, it's so simple. His issues with the fans. Go out and talk about the fans. Talk about how what you guys are losers. You're booing a guy like me. You're booing me because I look good. You would rather cheer a guy like Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or CM Punk or Daniel Bryan because they look like you. You people don't look like me. I'm a better physical specimen than you, and that's why you're jealous of me. So how simple of a story is that? Mm-hmm. Then they'll boo him more. Then he's a heel, but he's not having to change anything about the person that he is. Right. He's just addressing these people that are making it very vocal that that they dislike him. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a good guy. It's everything. It's you fans that are the problem. Right. Why would he just not do that? That's a 1-minute promo that sets his character forward. At least he's getting the proper reactions from now on. Right. And stuff, so he can do what he wants, because that's the only story for the past year has been Roman Reigns versus the fan base. Yeah. The fans are the heels.
That's why I left it an open book. Maybe we'll see that tonight. I think tonight is a very.
You can't keep ignoring it. They're drowning out the crowd noise at WrestleMania. Yeah. He was getting booed out of the building when they came out, and then they lowered the audio and turned up the music. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, well, bro, listen. I got to be honest with you. When I saw them blow off all the fireworks, I figured they were doing that to kill the crowd noise.
Yeah, well, maybe a heel these days in professional wrestling. See John Cena for evidence too. Are guys that look really good.
Right.
Okay, because honestly, maybe your geeky wrestling, internet smart fan has nothing in common with those type of people. They have more common with people that look like them, right, that are unathletic looking, that are out there performing, because they can live vicariously through a guy like Daniel Bryan, right, and Sami Zayn and stuff. So that's the crowd that we have watching the shows right now, this niche audience.
Right.
Those are the people that they're going to gravitate to. They're not going to like Baron Corbin. they're not going to like Roman Reigns. They don't like Seth Rollins, or maybe they do like Seth Rollins because he was a Ring of Honor guy. But basically, that's what I see in the stories of professional wrestling today. Is fans like the guys that look like them.
Yeah,
and that's the way it's been for like the past 4 or 5 years as we got into smart marks. And basically, like I said, bro, the smart marks are the boys now. They're the ones actually trying out to become professional wrestlers. I go on indie shows and these kids weigh 165 pounds. They play video games. They go to the comic book conventions as marks, not as performers. They're signing autographs. They're like fans of the show. So that's like, and these guys are wrestling now. So that's the type of people that you see that they're gravitating to.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think about this match?
Well, I just want to say, I 100% agree with you, Glenn, what you just said. I wrote a piece on russosbrand.com last week. I just did this little promo, and I said Roman Reigns should cut this promo. And it was basically everything you just said, and the point I got across was that he should say, look, if a guy that looks like me is champion, you have no chance in hell of ever being champion, and that's why you hate me. And that's exactly it. So I completely agree with that. But with this match, I'm not surprised that Roman won, but I am surprised that it was just a straight-up finish and there was no shenanigans going on.
Well, yeah, I thought Rollins was going to hit the ring for sure. I thought, bro, there was reports that Ronda Rousey was at WrestleMania. They never mentioned. I thought I saw these spoilers. Yeah. Like people tweeting spoilers. I'm like, oh, this is my mind was thinking like, oh, okay, we can see some creative finishes here. Like, what is it? Nothing. Just straight up finishes. Just simplistic. That's what the show's, bro. Everybody's asking me. They tell me, what do you think they're going to do? I'm like, especially what was it? Roadblock. I think they're going to do something Roadblock with Dean Ambrose. I'm like, no. What makes you think that? Where's the evidence that they've done things like that the past 5 years? Everything is by the book. It's ABC. It's very simplistic. An 18-year-old could write. A 15-year-old can write the show. This guy goes over against this guy. It's just all matches and stuff. It is what it is. And until they make a drastic change,
right?
Until we stop saying that sports entertainment is an evil term. Okay, and start going more towards out-of-the-ring vignettes and getting characters over and doing crazy things instead of let's just showcase these guys because they're supposed to be good workers and they're good wrestlers and we want to see a 14 to 16-minute match and think that actually they still think that that's going to draw somebody that's changing the channel when they've been seeing this for the past 5 years, the same thing over and over every week, and more people are leaving the show.
Yep.
So it's like I said, the WrestleMania brand is what it is. The show will always be strong come WrestleMania time. Let's try to do different things because it can't hurt.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, listen, man, I thank you for joining us on our very first show here on Podcast One. Bro, I always love your insights and your thoughts, and you think everything through, and you've been there and you've done that, bro, and just thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. Good being on the show. And I'm gonna tweet about Chicken Necks if I hear that you buried me at the WrestleCon.
Hey, Glenn, you want to give him your Twitter account real quick before you go?
At the Real Disco. At the Real Disco.
All right, Glenn. Thanks for joining us today, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, Jeff. Well, listen, there were a lot of things I wanted to talk about. But Glenn, listen. I want to talk about you now, so you gotta end the chat. Here's where I bury you. Okay, he's gone. Listen, Jeff, he hijacked the show. I should have known freaking better. Every time Glenn gets the opportunity, bro, this is our first show on Podcast One, and he took it as an opportunity to get himself over. I wanted, to give the fans something, the Great Disco Inferno on the first show. He hijacked the show. We're almost at an hour and a half. We didn't talk about Raw tonight. We didn't talk about WrestleCon. I've left so much on the table, but now that has to wait another day. But listen, let me tell you guys about tomorrow. Tomorrow, Jeff and I do a show called Raw, What Was It Good For? And on that show tomorrow, we specifically go back to the Attitude Era, episode by episode, and break it down, the shows that I wrote. So it's almost like a director's cut. And, week by week, we cover the Attitude Era. I tell you what was going on behind the scenes, why we did what we did. and we compare it to the current day Raw that just happened the night before. So that will be tomorrow's show. Jeff, for those that want to watch the show on the WWE Network before they join us here on Podcast One, what's the date of tomorrow's show?
The date of the episode we're doing tomorrow is July 6th, 1998. We are on the road to the Fully Loaded pay-per-view, July 6th, 98. And if this is your first time listening to us, we just go week by week. So next week will be the Raw after that and so on. And we'll do the pay-per-views. And it's basically, look at it as a writer's commentary to an episode that they wrote, because that's what Vince does. He goes through the episode top to bottom, stories he remembers from backstage, why we did this, why we didn't do that. So it's very informative if you were a fan of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, if you were a huge fan of the Attitude Era, this show is for you. This will take place tomorrow, Raw. What was it good for? I will follow that up on Wednesday with a bucket full of chicken necks, which is just the Vince Russo one-man show. I've got so much material about WrestleCon and who I ran into and conversations I had. I will talk about that the day after. You will get that on Podcast One on Thursday. Let me explain to you real quickly how this works. We are on Podcast One now, Monday through Friday. The shows are different every day. The shows are free. The audio shows are free. You can get them on podcastone.com. You can download the Podcast One app, and you should also be able to get them on iTunes. Now, if you go to russosbrand.com, which is our website, you could see those shows a day earlier, and you could see them in their entirety, but you see the video version of the show, and you also will see exclusive video content that you will not get on Podcast One. We do that through the Realm Network. So if you go to russosbrand.com, you can sign up for the Realm Network for 75 cents a week. You could see our shows in video, and you will also get exclusive weekly video through the Realm Network. You just need to go to russosbrand.com, sign up for the Realm Network. You'll get the video with Realm. You'll get the audio with Podcast One. Jeff, there it is, man. The first show for Podcast One under the belt. I want to thank them for bringing us aboard, for giving us this opportunity. And Jeff, as always, I want to thank you for today's show.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this new step in our journey, man. It's going to be awesome.
And everybody, we will be back here tomorrow. Raw, what it was good for. See you then.